If the president were to ask me my advice on how to deal with the worst recession since the Great Depression, I would politely ask him to turn off the teleprompter. It's hard to have a conversation with the American people when speaking through scripted words. And besides, the script really isn't working. We've been hearing the same scripted words since 2009, and yet gas prices have doubled, unemployment is nearly double digits, and we're accumulating debt at $40,000 a second. I would tell the president politely to turn off the teleprompters, to turn off and maybe to quiet the loudmouths who are calling those of us who oppose some of his plans terrorists, who are hurling invective at us as if that's somehow constructive. I would tell him to turn off or disassociate himself from this type of rhetoric. Leadership means accepting responsibility for where we are after nearly 3 years of his administration. For the first year or two, it was always Bush's fault. Oh, the economy, the recession, it's all Bush's fault. But at some point in time, leadership means accepting responsibility. We have unemployment nearly 10%. This administration is set to accumulate more debt than all 43 presidents combined. With the unemployment, 2 million people, 2 million new workers are out of work. Leadership means accepting responsibility. And I would ask at this point that he accept some responsibility for this failed economy and for these failed policies, and that we try something new. Leadership isn't just attaching blame to the other side and saying, oh, it's just the Republicans' fault. But likewise, it's not us standing up and saying it's just the Democrats' fault. It's both sides admitting that there's blame to go around. The number one problem that fuels our deficit crisis, that has us pushing on forward towards this deficit problem, is entitlements. And this is not anyone's fault. It's not the Democrats' fault. It's not the Republican fault. Entitlements are broken. Entitlements are broken for two incontrovertible facts. Number one, people are living longer. Number two, there are less workers and more retirees. When Social Security was started, there were dozens of workers for every retiree. Now we're less than 3 workers for each retiree, and we're headed towards a time when there's going to be 1 worker for 1 retiree. Social Security now pays out more than it brings in. These are just facts. We can fix these programs, but we can't fix them if we involve ourselves in the rhetoric where each side or one side is calling the other side terrorists. Mr. President, we need to get beyond that type of rhetoric, and we need to sit down together and try to figure out our nation's problems. Likewise, I don't think it's good for you to simply say, oh, it's the rich, blame the rich are not paying their fair share. Well, the facts speak otherwise. We have a progressive income tax in our country. In fact, the top 1% of wage earners who earn about 20% of the income pay 38% of the income tax. The top 10% of wage earners, which earn about 50% of the income, pay 70% of the income tax. So the only thing the facts could tell us about the tax code is that the wealthy are paying their fair share and then some. Well, you point out examples and say, well, this corporation didn't pay any tax, or this individual didn't pay any tax. Those are anecdotes, and anecdotes do not make a trend and do not make the truth. The truth is that the middle class and the rich pay the vast majority of the income tax. In fact, the bottom 50%, nearly half of all income tax is paid by those above. Nearly half of income tax, nearly half of wage earners don't pay any income tax. So really, we need to get our facts straight and get beyond sort of this blame the rich game, this class warfare, this class envy. We need to remember that this is America, where the American dream is open to all. You, Mr. President, are a product of the American dream. You should be proud of those who gain wealth. You should be proud of those who make a profit. We should extol the successes of American businesses, of American individuals. That would help us to move forward. Now, we do face a problem. We have great joblessness in our country. How would we fix it? I would have 5 different things that we would do, and I think if we did these, our economy would begin to rebound. We would see a recovery almost immediately. Number 1, we need a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution. For too long, we've been running these massive debts, and debt has a face. Some economists are saying that our debt causes 1 million people to be out of work each year. Debt also causes our prices to go up. Gas prices have doubled. That's because we're financing our debt by printing new money. And that's what the rising prices. These rising prices hurt seniors. These rising prices hurt those who are on the lower end of the socioeconomic ladder. So the first thing we need to do is get rid of our debt problem, a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution. Now, in order to do that, you have to also have a spending plan. So the second thing I'd say is we need a spending plan. You did propose a budget, but everybody voted against it. All 100 senators, all the Republicans, and all the Democrats voted against your plan. So obviously it wasn't a plan that was acceptable to representatives on either side of the aisle. But I think there is a spending plan that America would accept, and I call it the penny plan. The penny plan would cut spending by 1% each year for 6 years. Cut 1 penny out of every dollar of federal spending. Families have to do it across America when times are tight. Is there any reason why government couldn't cut 1% of spending? If you cut 1% of spending for 6 years and then freeze spending for 2 more years, your budget will balance in 8 years. So it's not enough just to have a balanced budget amendment. We have to have a spending plan that tells us and shows us how we could get to a balanced budget. Number 3, I think we should immediately cut in half the corporate income tax. We should eliminate capital gains taxes, and we should make the tax rates that are out there now, give them some permanence so businesses can have some predictability. Number 4, I think we need a regulatory moratorium. We need to add no new regulations. In fact, I think it would be a good idea to repeal 1 regulation every week until the economy starts recovering. The regulatory burden is adding $2 trillion to the economic woes that we have in our country. And if we could get a business-friendly, regulatory-friendly government that acknowledges that we need some regulations, but that we've gone way overboard, I think you'd see an enormous recovery to the economy. And number 5, we have to have entitlement reform. Like I say, this is no one's fault. We're living longer. There are folks that there just aren't as many workers to pay the taxes anymore. So we have to fix entitlements, and we can fix them. I've mentioned these to you and to others in your administration. We could allow the age to gradually rise for Social Security over a 20, 30-year period, and we could allow means testing, which would mean that the rich would bear more of the burden of paying for their benefits and their entitlements. These are things that both sides of the aisle could come together on, and I think if we did, you'd see an economic boom like we haven't seen in a long time. In order to get there, though, many people say, well, we have to compromise. Well, compromise goes both ways. You've put forward your ideas tonight. You need to come and talk to us about how we could work with you, but that means you need to entertain some of our ideas. Thank you, and God bless America.